So we've talked a lot about the creator boards, and there's absolutely amazing boards out there, but sometimes the gaming boards actually make a bit more sense in terms of the price. For example, this one over here, this is the Gigabyte Z790 Gaming X AX. And if we're looking at this on Amazon here, you can see that it costs around $230. For the same price, you can't find a single other motherboard that offers as many features as this one here. So if you're looking for a motherboard that has DDR5 Z series motherboard, Wi-Fi on board, all the M.2 slots have heatsinks, and it costs $240 or less, then if you look around here, there is literally nothing for it. I've assorted this to $220 to $245 to see what's out there. And if we go to high to low, see, more expensive here, Strix B60 more expensive, Z790A $260 more expensive, but M.2 still don't have heatsinks. That's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. Okay, Tomahawk $255 with a Z690 motherboard. It's quite a good option, but still $255. We've got the Prime from Asus, but this is DDR4, $240 for the same price, and you don't have heatsinks for all the M.2s. We have the Aero G DDR4, which is $240, but the Aero G DDR5 is $279. By the time you're watching this, the pricing might change, but this motherboard is definitely worth a look at, even though this is gaming, and for some of the creators, this might be a very, very good affordable option. So let's have a look a bit closer.
Looking for a cheap way to license your Windows? Check out Heatsinks through the links in the video description. Make sure to use the code TN20 to get a 30% off. Paste the license to the activation settings and you're all done. This license is for Windows 10, but you can upgrade it to Windows 11 for free. They also offer Microsoft Office 19 license. Use the same code TN20 to get a 30% off. Check out Heatsinks.com in the video description below.
Let's have a look what this motherboard comes with. Obviously, the motherboard is here, and underneath the motherboard, we've got the Wi-Fi antenna, and this one is the same as on the Aero D or Aero antennas. This is a really, really nice PS5 shape antennas, if you haven't seen that one before. And it comes with two SATA cables. I guess not a lot of accessories, but it's the motherboard that you're paying for, not for the accessories. So I like that. On the back of the motherboard, we've got a bare motherboard, no protection or anything in there, and the holes for the coolers is only LGA 1700. Let's have a look at the motherboard, around the motherboard, see what's going on. In terms of the power connectors, there is 8+8 power connectors. Okay, so that's 4+4, 4+4 CPU EPS power connectors there. So for overclockers, you know, they get plenty of juice for this one, but even one single 4+4 would be enough to run like the 13900 KS, even if you wanted to. And then 24-pin ATX power here, and that's the power connectors. Moving on, we have the PWM connectors, and here we have CPU fan and CPU optional. So these will share the kind of curves on the Gigabyte BIOS. And by the way, Gigabyte BIOS gives you a lot of different points for the curves if you really want to customize your fans, much more than Asus. Asus only gives 4, I think, or 3 or something like that. You get plenty in Gigabyte BIOS. There's 2 there, and then there's also a ton on the bottom here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 in there. Wait a second. Where's the instruction manuals for this? Okay, they don't give you a printout, just a QR code to go on the website. Moving on from the top, we have RGB connectors. And there's one 5V on the top over there, another 5V I can see down here. And then there is 12V on the top there, and then 12V there. So 4 altogether, but 2 5V. Then we have USB 3.2. 5 gigabit connector over there. There's a USB-C front panel header, and this is 10 gigabits per second speeds. And then in terms of other USB headers, we have 2 USB 2.0 headers on the bottom there. Then these are very interesting connectors there. These two here are Thunderbolt headers. Even though this board doesn't come with Thunderbolt support on the back I/O, you can add in a Thunderbolt add-in card to the bottom slots there, and then connect it to these 2 internal headers. And then this board can support Thunderbolt as well, which is interesting. We've got 4 SATA ports. in the back over there. And usually you have this Gigabyte connector where you put the, you know, front panel headers all on the connector, and then you can slot it in there, because I can see there's like little latches on the side, and it's like inside another kind of plastic there to click it in there. But it didn't come with a box, so maybe I've got just like a media sample or something like that, that it doesn't come with all the accessories. But that's what I've seen here. There's also a reset switch, actual manual button on the motherboard there. And I think these two prongs there, the metal ones, they're also reset. If you connect them with a screwdriver or something metal, this will also reset. And then this button one there on top of the front panel headers is your clear seamless headers there. We have a Q flash button in there, so you can update your BIOS by just plugging a USB in the back, hitting that, boom, and then it will update your BIOS, which is very, very nice. And this is your SPI TPM header. Most people probably don't need that one. And then another interesting header here is, because we've already talked about the RGB, is LED demo. There's two prongs over there. So I bet there is a little cable that you can buy and connect it to like a USB power bank, and you can see the LED demo of the board if you want to showcase it off somewhere, which is interesting because I don't think any of the people would want to show this apart from media. So this is just a media header, let's call this. And then we finally have the front panel audio. Okay, looking at the back I/O of this motherboard, we've got 4 USB Type A 2.0 headers. We've got Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.2 antennas here. We've got USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, these two red ones on the top there. And these are 10 gigabits per second in speed. And also the left one here is the BIOS port. So if you want to update your BIOS, you're going to have to plug it into this slot there. It's clearly labeled there as well. So basically red usually means 10 gigabits per second. And then if you've got blue is 5 gigabits per second, which we can see here. These 3 blue ports, they're 5 gigabits per second speeds. But interestingly, this blue port here has extra little kind of connectors or like holes on the USB connector there, which makes it slightly different than all the other ones. Then we've got USB Type C here, that is 3.2 Gen 2 X2 slot, so 20 gigabits per second speed. Very, very fast to see that. I'm very happy with that. 2.5 gig LAN. We have optical out, and then mic, and then line out. Okay, line in and line out, basically 2 headers. So we don't have the 5.2 or 5.1 connectors there, but plenty of connectivity there as well for the I/O. So now looking at the M.2 slots and taking the heatsinks off, we've got one heatsink for 3 of these M.2 slots. And I like that Gigabyte's doing let's just put everything boom, boom, boom next to each other in the row, like they did with the system fans. Let's just have everything in the row rather than all around the motherboard, which is kind of beneficial, but then kind of not if you want something closer to you or something like that. But also if you do want to add any M.2 slots to the motherboard, you're going to have to take your GPU out most likely because it can't fit there. So it's not going to be on the very bottom, and you can do it with the GPU still installed. You're going to have to take the GPU off. There is a thermal pad on top of it, but not underneath the M.2 slot. And then the top slot, the same thing, the thermal pad on the top. So talking about these M.2 slots there, all of them are PCIe Gen 4 X4 slots, so you can get full fat Gen 4 speeds there, up to 7.5 almost gigabytes per second. Right, but there's a little intricacies when we're talking about these slots and how they share some of the bandwidth. So basically, the front 3 will support only PCIe M.2 slots, okay? If you want to slot into a SATA M.2, then that's only supported on the bottom slot there. And if you use SATA on the very bottom slot there, on the M.2 MSB slot, then you will have all the SATA ports on here as well. But if you do install a PCIe Gen 4 drive there, you will lose 2 SATA ports there. The very bottom ones here will share the bandwidth here. But that's only when you've got PCIe slot in there. But I think it's still very, very good because you still have 4 SATA ports there and then 4 M.2 slots for your very fast PCIe connectivity. One more thing that I really like that motherboard manufacturers are starting to do, a little bit of their own version of each. If you remember, Asus had like the button here to get the GPU lock here to unlock, but this one here we have a little bit of a lifted kind of a whatever that's called. So now it's much easier to undo the GPU slot here boom, rather than like this, because it's elevated, so you don't have to put your screw there. You can just put it with your finger when you install the GPU there. And lastly, I already mentioned this in the beginning, but there's 4 RAM slots. They are DDR5 compatible, and you can install up to 128 gigabytes. But very soon, with the BIOS update, you can get much more, because I'm not sure if you've heard, Corsair has released, and soon every other DDR5 manufacturer will release, more than 32 gigabyte modules. There's also now 24 and 48 gigabyte modules. So in theory, right now, at the point of me making this video, you can install 192 gigabytes of RAM here with the BIOS update. But in the future, you could get even more, because the DDR5 can have up to 64 gigabyte modules per stick. So you could get 256 gigabytes. That's ridiculous, right? If you want to check out this motherboard, I'm gonna leave it in the description below. But if you want to build yourself the best bang for buck creator PC, then check out the build guides in the description below. Whatever budget you have, there's a PC build for you. I promise. There's 4 parts, but each part has upgrade and downgrade options to configure to any budget. So whichever budget you have, just check out those build guides in the description below, because I just know they're the best for creators. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.